Hey everybody, Coach here. Hey, welcome to this week's program. Man, I'm glad you took a couple of minutes to join me. Hey, you know, it wasn't but a few days ago I was sitting in the chair, you know, the barber chair that is, and while the very senior barber was putting the towel over me, I was kind of thinking, you know, what should I do for this week's content? I had some ideas, but I was trying to mull them over. I had like 6. And then this kindly old gentleman goes, "So, young feller, how much are we taking off today?" And it hit me. It hit me like a brick. I said, it's time to prune. It's time to prune. So this week, we're talking pruning for 2022, you know, and we're gonna simplify it for you by calling it pruning with the 5 W's and an H. That way you will learn more, you will learn faster, and you'll retain it. Anyway, hey, I'm Matt, you can call me Coach. Let's get this thing started, shall we? Time to take off. Hey, I'm Matt, you can call me Coach. Every Friday I bring with me landscape DIY education, concepts and theories, ideas and solutions, so you guys can go out and tackle a landscape project yourself, get professional results, save a whole lot of money in the process, and in this day and age, be a lot more self-reliant. Man, after a 20-plus year career in the green industry, I'm bringing with me a lot of knowledge and experience that I want to share with you guys, the new, modern, educated, self-reliant homeowner of today. Okay, we're going to take a little bit of a left turn here just for a second, just to dial you in to how I'm doing this week. You can remember back to high school and college and taking any sort of English lit classes or creative writing classes, and they always kind of taught you that 5 W's and H. You remember that? I do, and it's been a few decades. I ain't going to tell you how many. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the 5 W's and H, let's talk about the who, what, where, when, why, and the H being a how. So let's take a look at this, because this is how I'm applying it to your pruning for this winter and spring. The who, not the band. The who is who's actually doing the task. Is it going to be you? Is it going to be you and your Mr. or Mrs. or your partner or whatever? Is it going to be the whole family? Is it going to be you and the extended family because you got a whole lot of stuff to clean up? That's the who involved. Now we're talking about the what's. What are we pruning? What exactly are we pruning? And we're going to dive in deeper to all of these in just a couple of minutes, so don't leave yet. The where. Now, the where is going to be a little tricky one for you, because not only does the where apply to where you're actually applying the actual cuts, but there's another facet to that too. The why. Why are we doing it? Well, it sounds kind of self-explanatory, but you'd be surprised that the number of times people prune and they really don't know what they're doing and they don't know how to do it. So the why and the when. The time of year, the time of day, believe it or not, and the weather. When? You're going to want to go out and prune in a blizzard or in an absolute downpour. The when comes into play quite a bit. And finally, the how. The how I'm not going to dive into massive detail. I am going to cover it to give you the basics, but damn, YouTube has like 4 bazillion channels out there that'll teach you every individual plant there is and how to trim it and tuck it and nip it up and make it look nice. So I'm not doing that. All I'm going to be is repeating all these other people's hard work. So if you have a particular plant, whether it be a tree, shrub, grass, whatever, all you have to do is check it online and it'll go right to it. How do you prune coreopsis? How do you prune a cherry tree? How do you prune a grapefruit tree? And man, if I did every single plant, perennials and all those other genres, I'll tell you what, this would be like a 5-hour video. And no, I'm not going to do that to you, okay? So here we go, 5 W's and H. So how's your pruning knowledge? For those of you who I'm talking to right now, and if you guys have a lot of knowledge, sadly, you're probably just going to click off, or you're going to stick around and criticize. But whatever you do, if you do click off, before you do it, hit me a like and drop a nice comment. It really helped the channel and all the work that Maestro and I put into this thing. Now, if you're a newbie, if you're a rookie at this, you might want to stick around, because this is going to really give you a foundation on which to build from, and everything that I've kind of advertised so far. So stay with me. Being a homeowner, especially in this day and age, it is a paramount responsibility on knowing this horticultural task. It really is, because you are going to do so much for your landscape, knowing how to get out there and properly prune, nip, and tuck 12 months out of the year. You're going to have plants that are going to thrive. They're going to live longer. They're going to bear more fruit. They're going to be sturdier when they do bear. And you will have a much more neat and tidy landscape that really has that nice manicured look. So like I said, when we were talking about the W's, let's start off with the who. You, your significant other, you and the whole family, the kids, the dog, and everything else. Maybe your parents are coming over to give you a hand. Whoever it is. For me, usually, not always, but usually, it was kind of a solo lobo act for me. And you have to remember, I love doing this stuff. It was really a very big catharsis for me, as far as getting out there and putting the pruning shear in the scabbard and having it on my hip, and then going out and seeing what needed to be done. And there was always something that needed to be done at all houses that I've ever owned. There was always something, whether it be perennials or trees or even annuals. I mean, everything could take a little bit once in a while. And it was a very big catharsis. It really was, except for my olive orchard. The olive orchard, yeah, that was a ball buster. There's no two ways about it. For one person to do 95 trees, yeah, it was like 2.5, 3 weeks every day, about 5 hours a day. And then we had all the trimmings that we had to pick up and dispose of. And that was like 4 trips to the dump, or at a very high expense, I could call in a mulcher and did it. I did that one year, but I wasn't going to do it again. Okay, so that's the who. The what is exactly, what are you pruning? What is on your agenda to neaten up and take care of? That is really paramount. You know, if you have a couple of small cherry trees, or maybe a Washington navel orange, or a couple of peach trees, you really don't have a huge chore. You have a chore or a task to have it done and make sure that it's done right. But many of you out there have several things that need to be addressed, and not just dormant pruning, not just whenever all the leaves are down. There's lots of things that you can nip and tuck throughout the whole 12 months out of the year, most of the time. Maybe unless you have like 8 feet of snow or something and you can't see what you need to prune, then obviously you're going to put it off for several weeks. But as far as the what, this is where some horticultural knowledge, and this is where this channel and my email can really help you out. It can really help you round you off horticulturally, and be able for you to have the confidence to go out there and go, should I take that one off, or is it that one? What the hell is he talking about? A central leader or a modified leader? What is he talking about? Click off. Nah, don't do it. Hang in there, because there's a lot every single week that you're going to learn here. And finally, regarding the what, it also starts to interlace and dovetail into the when and the why, and even a little bit on the wheres, which you will understand by the end of this video. So let's talk about the where. The where kind of surrounds a few things. Where is what you're pruning located in your landscape? Is it, for instance, a where? I found this one time when I was doing some ornamental pruning for a client many, many years ago. And it was ornamental grasses, large miscanthus grasses, and they were out in this large planting bed. And the thing is when I got out there, it was about first week of February, coming up. Now we're talking Northern California. We're not talking Alaska or Minnesota or anything like that. So I'm going out there and I'm roping up these ornamental grasses, and I'm finding myself having to tiptoe around all these upcoming bulbs everywhere that they had planted. And it's basically boiled down to a little better spacing, a little better planning could have been done when they originally installed this, because they had a little gallon can miscanthus, and then they had a whole bunch of bulbs, and they planted them all around the miscanthus, and then the miscanthus was probably, you know, this big around, and now the bulbs are right up against the base of the grass, and so I'm having to tippy-toe around so I'm not snapping off all the new growth of the bulbs and ruining their whole bulb season, which, by the way, happen to be very important to them. So the wear also has to do with the cutting, and that's where I invite you to all the channels that are out there regarding individual cutting, wear, 45-degree angles, flowering buds versus leaf buds, primocanes versus floricanes, and the wears that you're going to do it. Are you taking things off at the base? Do ornamental grasses go to the ground, or do you leave 4 to 6 inches? And like I said, the wear ties into the when. Some things you don't want to prune until just about leaf break, just about. So ornamental grasses, they have a great insulatory value throughout the harsher months with all that dried vegetation around them. You cut it down and expose the crown of that grass, sometimes you can do damage. So where you cut is as important as when and what you're cutting. Now, most of the time, if you have questions regarding, hey coach, I got a 3-year-old peach tree, gave me a lot of peaches, but it also broke a lot of branches because I didn't thin out. So how do I go about, you know, attacking that 3-year-old peach tree? If you have questions similar to that regarding pruning, or any other landscape question for that matter, you know, I'm only an email away, and it's a free resource for now. Someday, who knows, maybe it'll be a consultation fee. But for right now, I love giving what's up in here to you guys so you can go out there and be the best you can be as far as a homeowner and a landscaper. Okay, moving on to the why. The why is kind of like the holy grail or the cornucopia of pruning. Why do we do it? Why do we prune an apple tree? Why do we prune tick seed? Why do we prune bulbs off? Why do we prune hedges? What do we do with deciduous plants versus evergreen plants? The why behind all of this stuff is extremely important, and it also dovetails into the when. So think of it this way. Why you prune is nothing to do with when you're pruning. It has to do with the next growing season, and sometimes 2 and 3 seasons down the road of what you're doing right now. It's almost like raising a child. You know, you shape them, you mold them, you teach them, and they grow up to be strong, educated, self-reliant adults. Well, to use that analogy, doing that with plants from the time you first put it in the ground, and you go through season 1 and you do a little nip and tuck, so you modify it and teach it to do this and that. Maybe you put some spacer bars in there so that it has more of a, instead of a narrow crotch in the tree, it has much more of a lateral or slightly angular. You can do this through pruning. And in a matter of a few years, you have a very strong, prolific and bearing type of plant that can hold up to heavy loads of fruit. And then you go in after that fruit has all been done and gathered and processed and enjoyed, and you go back in and do some growing season nip and tuck. Take some of the weight off of that tree. Think of it this way. How many times in this month, every single year, do you watch on YouTube, TV, whatever, that you see weight loss? Weight loss is a big thing. It's the cornucopia of the first part of the year. Everybody's going to have the resolution to lose a few pounds. And everybody knows that if you go from 60, 70 pounds overweight and you drop that 60 or 70 pounds, how much more vitality you have, how much more energy you have, how much less stress there is on your body, your ankles, your heart, your lungs, everything. Well, pruning is weight loss for a tree, and that can be done starting in the winter and then after fruit bearing during the growing season. And then you can also go in and do the why as far as shaping, opening up for air circulation to pass through, so mildews and sooty mold fungus and pseudomonas in cherry trees and other things don't take hold. Then you can open them up right before harvest and let all that sunshine in, all that work that you've gone in and thinned some of that stuff so you have a good productive harvest that year of whatever you have. You've gone through and thinned out the canopy so all that sunshine and that warmth gets down into the fruit on the interior. Fantastic sugar production. And that's what the why comes into. You know, you do it for the strength, vitality, quality of fruit that it's going to have. It all does it when you take a little bit of weight off its shoulders and allow it to do it. Now, many times, stone fruits especially, not necessarily, and apples, maybe pears, although pears are a little bit more upright, but you'll see those. My God, did you see the Smith's peach tree? It's almost laying down. It's so heavy with, you know, peaches, it's going to break. And sure enough, you know, you get a major league branch on a peach tree that snaps off because you got 60 pounds of fruit coming to ripen. That's not good landscape management, and it's certainly not good horticultural practices. That's the kind of stuff that where by June or even May, when the fruit is set, that you need to go in and thin out. And if you don't think thinning out fruit isn't kind of a part of pruning, it really is. It really is. It's plant maintenance. And you will find that if you go in and do it, space those peaches, space those apples, space those pears, those oranges, whatever it might be, you will find a much more robust plant, and a plant that is very thankful for what you did and rewards you such for your efforts. So as an example of, we'll take for instance stone fruits, nectarines and peaches. I always made it a habit to do a lot of thinning of the fruit so that I had a good spacing. And then I also did a lot of thinning of the vegetation up top and thinned it out so that there was plenty of light penetration. Then the peaches and nectarines were so happy that after I harvested, I went in and took some of the vegetation on top and created a little more of a scaffolding effect, which filled out by the end of the growing season. And then in winter, I went in and did some moderate pruning as needed. But I never had broken branches. I never had snap stuff from too heavy a fruit. And you can do that too as well. Cherry trees is another thing. After harvest in whatever month you guys harvest in, for me it was always May, maybe early June at the latest, depending on what kind of spring we had. You know, I would go in and thin out the tops, and I would keep the canopy of the cherry tree. Even though it was a semi-dwarf, it still got to be 15 feet high. I would go up on a ladder and I would take the height down. That way we would have lateral shoots that would come out and eventually produce at much more of an easier harvesting range of height, rather than having to go up on a ladder and do all the picking and then come back down and then go back up again. So work smarter, not harder. Okay, so finally the when. You know, we're talking mainly about dormant season pruning, when everything, including evergreens, are at their slowest metabolic rate. You know, the deciduous trees and shrubs, they're all sleeping. You know, they got all their sugars and carbohydrates down the root system, and they're just taking a vacation. So much of that can go in, and you can do pruning, selected pruning, corrective pruning, so that cosmetically everything looks okay. Perennials can be taken down a little bit. If they're snow covered, don't worry about them. And don't go in there and clean up all the vegetation on them either. Just let it be ugly for just a little while. The reason for that is that's that insulation value I was telling you about. So perennials, ornamental grasses, that kind of stuff, just let the vegetation sit for a little while longer. Now, we're also talking when. We covered a little bit just a minute ago. It can be growing season as well. Evergreens, I don't suggest doing any sort of pruning of any moderation in the wintertime. They're also, even though they retain their leaves, they're also sleepy. They're taking a nappy right now, and there's no need to go in and do anything to that boxwood hedge or that holly hedge or, you know, the green giant arborvitaes. You know, you don't need to do anything, because you're going to be almost telling the plant to try and start pushing shoots. And you don't want shoots coming out in a very cold winter temperatures that are just going to burn them anyway. So what I suggest is you do your growing season nips and tucks. The last one should be no later than Thanksgiving. And then all your evergreen stuff, just leave it. Let it go to sleep. Let it be what it is until you see that bud push come March, April, or May, wherever it comes out in your area. So right now we're talking about winter pruning pretty much now through the end of February. Maybe a little bit later for you guys that are north of the 45th parallel, but for right now, yes, now we're getting into prime time. We're in the zenith part of most of 6 plush-ish, 7, 8, 9, 9A, 9B, 10, all those USDA zones, those now we're in prime time. So your roses, your fruit trees, not necessarily your citrus, even though you're probably harvesting some of the navel oranges. Maybe you got some Meyer lemons coming in. Citrus is a whole nother animal. They can be pruned almost 12 months out of the year. But again, the depths of winter, when they're bearing their fruit, just let them bear their fruit. Don't go in there unless you have, branch break or something, or you have some disease that's starting. Just leave them alone. Wait till you see that first push of flower and growth on those citrus trees. Then you can go in and shape and keep in bounds whatever you want. Okay, so in order to cover the how, we're going to talk about a few for instances. We're going to start off with ornamental grasses. Some of you may have them, some of you may not. Here's one that's quite common in most of the area that I was in, and it's just the little blue festuca, the Elijah blue festucas. Those are always kind of fun for me to prune, because I go out there and put my audible in and do my nips and tucks throughout the day, and I take those little blue festucas and I would just wrap them up. I'd wrap them up into my hand and then have all the little pokies coming out, and I would just give it a haircut, just a flat top, and then let it go down, and it's like a perfect festuca all over again. When it comes to some of the dormant grasses, you will find that, say like Pennisetum rubrum, especially the fountain grasses, most of you see those in the nurseries in the growing season. You go, oh my gosh, they're so beautiful. And then they go to sleep in the winter. And you're up in zone 6 or 5. You kind of have to rely on not pruning. You got to treat those particular grasses as an annual. But some of the other ones, miscanthus and Carl Forrester, featherweed grass, those guys, yep. But a way to do it, a how to do it, I learned this a very long time ago. Bungee cord around, probably 12 inches, maybe 18 inches up the clump, tie it off, go down 6 to 8 inches, take your head shear and go around perfectly trimmed. Rake it all up after you're done, and then you have a nice bundle of grass of which you carefully take and put into your wheelbarrow, and then haul it off, or put it in your yard and garden, or whatever you do, however you dispose of it. Keep in mind on ornamental grasses, many times their claim to fame is their seed head value. Some have colorful seed heads, some have wispy seed heads that give you some of that movement in the garden. Well, they call them seed heads for a reason, and enjoy it short term, but as soon as those seed heads are getting to maturity, I strongly suggest you go in and take them out so they don't blow in the wind and you have miscanthus over there and not just here, or you have it in your neighbors, or you have it 3 neighbors down. So take that out. Enjoy the foliage if you want in the dry winter months or whatever, but get rid of the seed head. For you guys with pampas grass, Pennisetum especially, that fountain grass, green or otherwise, it'll end up going in places. Mexican featherweed grass. Now there's one that goes to seed. You're going to have featherweed grass everywhere. So get rid of those seed heads. Very important. Okay, moving on. Fruit trees, apples, cherries, pears, nectarines, plums, prunes, figs, and I'm sure there's more that I just don't remember them all right now. We're basically concentrating main focus on dormant pruning, going in there and taking cross branches out, heading back as necessary, keeping the tree in an area and a size that you can comfortably go in and maintain and harvest from. Leave the standard varieties to the commercial people, my suggestion, and you go with semi-dwarf or ultra-dwarf. That way you can do 15 feet or less, and even 15 feet is only if you let it get there. It makes it so much easier, and also goes to something I'm going to tell you about in just a minute. but mostly dormant pruning. And then I spoke about going in after harvest and doing some thinning and giving that tree a thank God effect. Thank you for that weight loss. And you've had a nice harvest, you've thinned it out, plenty of good air circulation, you give it a good feeding, and you've done that tree or those trees such a service that 95% of them, the ones that are out there on an ornamental residential landscape, they don't get it. Yours will. Okay, berries. Who does not like a sweet, ripe berry when they come in? Either wild or domesticated. Me personally, huckleberries, blueberries, blackberries, probably my top 3 favorites. This particular summer, Maestro and I had the unbelievable pleasure of spending hours up on a bald dome in Maine and just picking huckleberries for hours on end. And we had bags and bags of them that lasted for several months frozen, and then we enjoyed some fresh ones right after picking. So if you guys get into berries, like I said, voluminous amount of information on YouTube as far as how to prune them. But remember these 2 or 3 really important steps. Remember your primocane, your floricane, and your air circulation when it comes to them. And also a little bit of training. Your primocane is your vegetative growth the first year, and you can just let them go nuts. That's the more power that plant is putting out right then, the more you're going to have next year. Very powerful canes. Then they go to sleep. The next year, that primocane becomes a floricane, and the floricane is the one that's going to give you your flower and hence your fruit. After that second year, they start to become weakened. They are not a producing type of cane. You already have new canes coming up again for the next year, so go in and take out those floricanes that gave you the fruit and give all that energy to those primocanes. And you can take them and train them onto wire, you can train them onto a wood fence, keep them kind of neat. And the only growing season type of stuff is if you need to navigate through rows, you're going to have to do some mild pruning to make sure you have navigation up and down your rows. As far as blueberries are a fun plant, but they really teach you a lot of patience. They really do. Because they're not going to give you a whole lot to about their 3rd year and beyond. And even the 3rd year, depending on the variety, may be a little skimpy. But you're going to want to train. You're going to want to remember old gray wood. That's a term that I was taught many years ago. Old gray wood is weak wood, and chances are you want to keep looking for those strong kind of pinkish or reddish type of canes. Those are the ones that are going to give you your most bang for your buck. And as those canes that start to become old and gray and woody, those are the ones that will give you smaller berry, weaker wood, weaker stems, and those are the ones you're going to have go in and prune out. And prune them out probably every couple of years. The ones that I had at Weed Patch, I did about every 2 years, and it really kept them going quite a bit. I only wish I had had more of them. So we covered a little bit about citrus. Citrus is it's kind of a fun plant to play with. One of the greatest citrus trees I ever had was a Texas ruby red grapefruit that I had in the backyard near the pool. Did a lot of heavy skeletal pruning. And if you're not familiar with skeletal pruning, it's where you go in to a tree that has not had anything done to it for me, it was probably 25 years when I took the property over. At least 25 years. And I went in there and skeletal pruned it probably 70% to get shape back to it, to get strength, to get boundaries made, because some of it was hanging over the neighbor's yard. So citrus is something that you can nip and tuck, except the depths of winter. You can nip and tuck anytime. It is always receptive to pruning. You don't want to prune heavy in winter and encourage new growth during the colder parts of the year. When you do it, say like right after harvest, don't take any more than 25 or 30% of the plant off. Skeletal pruning on a very well-established citrus, a standard citrus, not a true dwarf or anything, they will take that, but you don't want to do it in the heat of the summer. You take that shade-covered bark and limb bark and you expose it to 95, 100-degree heat or super high humidities in an environment they're not used to, you can really get a really bad sun scald and even a splitting of the trunk that can really weaken the tree tremendously. I always suggest, like I did on that ruby red grapefruit, do it when you're at least 8 weeks. 8 weeks for any risk of heavy duty heat comes into your area. Okay, here's Coach's little checklist for the hows for you. We talked about how to do some of the plants. We invite you to check out some other channels. How many people tell you to do that if you're looking for specificity? Now let's take a look at the checklist as far as the real premium important things that you can do approaching a pruning task. Number one, I'm starting at the top, and that is quality tools. We're not talking something on sale at Walmart unless it's a quality tool, and then maintaining your tools in a really rigid fashion so that they're always lubricated, always sharp, and ready for action. When we're talking your pruning tools, you're talking about your hand pruners, like this one here, lopping pruners, like here, chainsaws, pole pruners, pole saws. Now remember this, unless you're really familiar with pole pruners and pole saws, they're kind of a weird duck, because remember, what you're pruning is going to be coming down on top of you sometimes, or somebody who's helping you. So bear that in mind. Always maintain your tools and keep them in a nice, cool, dry place. And then when you're done with them, clean them, lubricate them, and put them back in a good storage area. Number 2 is disposal equipment. I have seen so many homeowners, they have a big rose bed, and they go in and they do a fantastic job of doing all their pruning. And then they turn around and they see a whole nother chore where they have to go back in and touch everything again to pick it up and put it into a receptacle, whether it be a wheelbarrow, whether it be a big husky garbage can, or the yard and garden can, or a dump trailer. Dispose as you go, so you're touching it one time. And if you can do that, now I realize that some people can't get a dump trailer in their backyard, but if you have a wheelbarrow or a garbage can, you get that thing full and you roll it out and you put it in your yard and garden or whatever, or into a big garbage sack, touch it one time. It'll really increase your efficiency and the amount of time you have to stay on task. Okay, number 3, pay particular attention, growing season or not, to diseased and dead wood on anything that you're pruning. That is like having a little bit of cancer in your arm if you're a human. Doesn't mean you have to come in and cut off the whole arm, but that particular area that may be infected with cancer needs to be treated. Same thing with a plant. Don't wait on it. So, I'll get to it next month, because disease does not take a time off. Insect infestation does not take a day off. You have to get in and you have to address it. So make sure you get on it and get on it quickly. Then that diseased wood or that infestation of aphid or thrips or whatever you might have, make sure it gets bundled up correctly and disposed of properly. And here's something that I really strongly suggest, and that is, if you're cutting diseased wood out of whatever, dip it in alcohol. Every single cut, every single cut, every single cut, every single cut. Do not transfer the bacteria or the virus from your infected cut into healthy tissue later on if you're continuing to do the whole tree, but only part of it is affected. So clean culture cutting. Make sure you dip it. Alcohol, there's also a particular brand out there that is actual pruning sterilizer. You can check that out on Amazon or Google it. Okay, number 4, safety. Make sure, common sense really dictates. You don't want to have high ladder accidents. If you're not a tree expert, if you have apple trees that are 25 feet tall and you only have a 6-foot ladder, don't be standing on the top of that 6-foot ladder trying to reach with a pole saw, trying to get to the very top of that apple. Okay? It's just not safe, especially if you're solo lobo and you're doing everything yourself. That's just not smart work. Things about chainsaws. Remember, I talked about safety a couple weeks ago. I did it in this video right here. So remember chainsaws. Proper gear, proper equipment, proper practice. Very, very important. Remember those of you who are around you too, okay? If you got kiddos and doggo that's in the work area and you're knocking down 2 and 3 inch caliper type of branches, they're gotta go somewhere. So make sure little Janie or a Fido is not in the fall area, because it can really do some damage. Some of those things can be kind of heavy. I hope that gives you kind of a good round, general and basic approach to the task, the very important horticultural task of pruning. You're in your wheelhouse now. You do have the skills to go out and test. It's like anything else, start out small. One of the things I really suggest is when you start pruning, walk around. Get out and look as you go. Never prune from a one-directional area. Prune from at least 4 different visual directions, because every time you prune, you can't glue it back on. So make sure you make the proper cuts and the right cuts. Doing this horticultural task, make it fun. Make it fun for yourself and everybody who's involved. You know, put some earbuds in if you're doing it by yourself. Make it fun for the kids as far as who's gonna drag as many branches as the most branches to the trailer or to the garbage can, whatever it is, make it fun and enjoy it. And then later this year, you will reap your rewards on your berries, on your fruit trees, on everything that you've done. You have reinvigorated, revitalized, and made your landscape as healthy as possible. After your pruning, nice clean culture, you pick up everything that's there. And I guarantee you, your landscape will reward you come May, June, July, August, and September. They will just thrive. And then keep up on it through their growing season. Nips and tucks on perennials to increase your bloom periods. Maybe instead of just 1, maybe you have 4 or more. That's all I have for you this week. Hope you stayed with me. And if you have stayed with me this far, I really ask and consider that you subscribe to the channel. Ask some questions over my email at youryardcoach@gmail.com. And don't forget to go check out the website. Check out the website. We've got a great horticultural landscape DIY book there, and also the digital course. Don't forget the 15-step DIY checklist that I have for everybody. Guys, I'm Matt. You can call me Coach. I sure appreciate you sticking with me. I will catch you next Friday, every Friday. Guys, take care, and as always, to your landscape success. Bye for now.